Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mainframe Open Education Student User Group session for December. We have a great session for you all today with an excellent guest speaker. Just a friendly reminder that this session is being recorded, so in case you missed anything, you can go back and watch the replay. I will now hand it over to Taylor, who will introduce our guest speaker. Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Today we will be having Phil Sutherin join us. He's a friend of mine and an excellent all-around guy. A little about Phil. He's a mainframe technical consultant at Broadcom who helps customers integrate with the company's mainframe workload automation and scheduling products. For those who know, that it'd be CA7. He is a ZVM systems programmer at IBM in his past life, as well as Blue Cross Blue Shield. And very interesting, he's a member of the Montana-based Assiniboine Tribe. Did I say that right, Phil? Did I do it?
Yep, you said that
Awesome.
right.
All right, cool. And the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. So excited to have him here today. He's a great mentor to me and so many other people. So to kick things off real quick, I kind of want to set the tone a little bit and ask you a question about what do you hope that the people listening in today get out of the student user group session from you? What do you hope to give and give information on today and provide insight on too?
Sure. Yeah, just hoping that maybe people can walk away feeling a little bit more educated and just gain some perspective as because there's not really one way to do things, and so hopefully they can walk away with a little bit more perspective and um, feeling a little bit more enlightened, give some insights, and hopefully gain some value from this.
All right, sounds good. I know you'll be very inspiring to many people who listen in on this. So let's kick it off and go to the questions real quick, Devante. All right, so starting off, could you briefly introduce yourself and your past career experiences, Phil?
Yeah, sure. So, like Taylor introduced at the beginning, I am a member of the Assiniboine tribe in Poplar, Montana. I am not from Montana. I actually grew up in Idaho, but my tribe shares that reservation with the Sioux tribe as well up in Montana. And I go up there on occasion to, you know, do tribal stuff, but I mostly just stayed in Idaho, which is where I grew up. And when a lot of people think about Idaho, they think potatoes, and that is absolutely right. I worked in the potato fields. My high school looked like a potato cellar, and my high school mascot was a potato. So I'm about as Idaho as it gets when people think Idaho, but there's also lots of beautiful camping, lots of wonderful mountains, and I was blessed to be able to live about an hour away from West Yellowstone and about 45 minutes away from Jackson Hole. So there was plenty to do, even though there wasn't a lot of city and metropolitan. As far as my career and my experience, I started my IT career at Haskell Indian Nations University, which is a Native American college in Lawrence, Kansas, the same town that the University of Kansas is in as well. While there, that's where I started. I before starting in their IT department, I was actually a DJ running my own DJ business, and I would do DJ events for weddings, personal private parties, or even for the school. The school hired me out several times to do dances and sporting events. And it was in the midst of all these gigs that I was doing, and I even did play production. I ran the audio and the sound for one of their productions there at the school. And that's where they asked me if I'd be interested in working for the IT department. They're like, nobody in the IT department knows how to run this equipment, so you'd really help us out. And while I was there, they were like, would you be interested in learning traditional IT? And so I started picking up the manuals and the books that they had there and the training material and just started learning, and I fell in love with it. And it was after about 3 years of working there, almost 4, that IBM came to campus to do a STEM camp. I ended up setting them up with everything, and next thing I knew, I was working for IBM and learning mainframe. So that's where I ended up getting my mainframe start, was with IBM and I was working in Columbia, Missouri. After about 2.5 years of working there, I had the opportunity to go back to what I thought was going to be more of a distributed type role, as I was going to go work for a local insurance company. But what they really were interested was my mainframe skills, because they had this system called the AS400, which runs on the IBM I series, or the power systems, if any of you are familiar with that. And it runs on COBOL. So they liked the fact that I had worked with mainframe, so they were like, "You can figure this out." And so next thing I know, I'm working on a green screen again, and I wasn't unhappy about it. It was just like, oh, I thought it was going to be more distributed. Looks like it's going to be more green screen stuff, but it was a great opportunity, and I found that that was something I was good at, and it was fun seeing a different way to use COBOL in a different environment outside of the traditional mainframe. While there, after about a year and a half, I got recruited to go work for Blue Cross Blue Shield doing ZVM again. And it was before that, like it was leading up to my working for Blue Cross Blue Shield. I had been wanting more of a people facing role. I had been wanting to work more with customers and clients, because while working for this insurance company in Columbia Insurance Group, I found that I liked doing presentations. I liked walking people through things. I liked doing demonstrations. And suddenly I'm working for Blue Cross and I'm not getting to do any of that. I'm just working on tickets and I'm working on systems. And it was good work, but I really missed getting to work with people again and have that interaction. And so when I got the call from Broadcom to come become a technical consultant, it was an easy yes. And so ever since then, I've been joyfully working for Broadcom, and it has just been an amazing journey. And I love being here with Broadcom.
It's great. So to sum it up, you went from potatoes to mainframe within a couple of years, basically. That's quite
Yeah,
the
I
jump.
did. I did. Yeah.
That's
Working in potato fields to mainframe.
I didn't know that you were doing stuff with potatoes, and interestingly enough, I lived in Jackson Hole for a year or two, so I'm very familiar with the area you were in. And
Awesome.
yeah, beautiful place. Don't want to derail the conversation though. So quick question on that. There's some highs and lows in there. What do you think was the most rewarding part of all the transitions that you did from where you started to where you are now? And what was some of the most challenging parts of that journey?
Oh man, I don't know if I can really pin it on one single moment or one point. The whole
Mm,
journey has just been such a joy. And looking back, I feel like the culmination of all my experiences, being able to work in traditional IT for Haskell and for Columbia Insurance Group, and then also getting introduced to mainframe at IBM, and just all the experiences I've had along the way have really, I felt, paved the way for where I'm at now. I have had some challenging times that I'm actually grateful for. That those times where I've had perhaps a difficult team member, but it was in that time that I learned how to deal with that. I learned how to rise to that challenge, and I learned how to show them that I was an advocate for them and not an adversary, and was able to learn how to communicate better and find out ways that I perhaps wasn't communicating well, and learned how to turn those weaknesses into strengths. And so, I can't necessarily say that there was this one area that was necessarily the lowest point or another area that was the hardest point. It's all been a great journey. Like I love roller coasters, and I can't necessarily say that there's a favorite point in the roller coaster, because it's all an enjoyable ride.
Got it. No, that makes sense. So real quick, you kind of mentioned something that's interesting, and maybe some people who are watching this might not be aware, but moving between mainframe and distributed, it seems like you are kind of back and forth a little bit here and there. Could you talk about those transitions and what it was like to move between working for a distributed kind of side of the house and the mainframe side of the house?
Sure. Yeah, it's, you know, a lot of people might wonder if they, at least I should speak personally because this is something that I experienced when I was going into mainframe. I found myself asking, is this going to be somewhere that I get stuck? Am I going to get stuck in the mainframe field and will I have options outside of that? Because at the time of starting mainframe, I was kind of interested in the cybersecurity. And I'm like, and I kept like kind of asking my manager, I'm like, hey, can I take some cybersecurity trainings? Maybe I can take a certification or two. And he's like, Phil, just focus on mainframe for a while. He's like, and after you reach such a certain point that you still just really, really want to learn this other stuff, he's like, we'll let you do it. He's like, just focus on one thing at a time. And I was like, oh man, am I getting stuck in mainframe? I don't know. But when I ended up really starting to like mainframe. It grew on me over time. Once it became less scary and more understandable, it felt more comfortable, and I liked feeling um, I liked that feeling of like, oh, I'm getting kind of good at this. But then when I went back to distributed, I found that my skills still transferred really well. In fact, it allowed me to help bring some diversity to my teams who were in the very much more of the distributive side of things. And I had noticed that a lot of the distributed stuff had changed, but I still understood it. And I still understood the COBOL side of things. I'll call it, because the AS400 isn't necessarily mainframe, it's mainframe esque, and nobody quote me on that, but it was a little bit different. It was a COBOL environment, and it was an IBM product, and it was cool being able to help people understand that side of the house and being able to just have that diversity. If I was to go back to a distributed environment now, I feel like I could do so comfortably because I know different platforms, and if I needed to pick up something different, I feel like that would be a not necessarily an easy transition, but a very doable.
Makes sense. So one more thing, and then we'll progress to the listed questions. Sorry to derail everything so much, but what's your perception of mainframe now versus where you started off from? Like, how has that changed? What are your thoughts on that? Because you've gone through quite a lot, and you're nowhere close to where you started, in a certain sense.
Yeah. So when I first started mainframe and I jumped right into the 3270, Zoe was actually on the horizon, but it was not well established at that point. So all there really was the 3270 emulator. And when other traditional environments like have all the fancy stuff, you're kind of like, is this really modernized? It was, I came in with a lot of unsureties, and I had some doubts. The only people who were telling me that this thing's going to be staying around were, about to retire. And so I'm like, okay, we'll see. Hopefully this isn't something that's going away. But as the years progressed and the more that I learned about it and learned how strong of a technology of it is, I my perception quickly changed. And now my perception has gotten to the point where I'm like, if people aren't using mainframe, they're really missing out, because mainframe is so powerful. It's so modernized, and there's still a lot of progress to be made there. But as far as like, if you look at the hardware, I was showing people last night at this AI event, and they were like, oh yeah, the old mainframe. And I pulled up some pictures of a Z16, and I was like, does that look old to you? Those look like fiber channels to me. And they were like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that doesn't look old at all. and I started explaining, just how advanced it was, and they were kind of like stepping away, going, "Wow, I had no idea." And so, yeah, my perspective has really evolved in a good way.
Cool. So let's answer that. Let's get an answer to that question. Do you think the mainframe is staying around? Or do you think it's just a bunch of people kind of who have a more mature experience of like, decades in the mainframe saying that just to, because they like it? What's your thought on that?
Oh, it's definitely staying. The world needs it. The
Uh,
technology is too good at what it does. It's so good at those batch processes. It's efficient. It wins on so many levels that it's definitely not going
all right. Well, there we have it. Somebody a bit younger saying it too. So must be
anywhere.
true, right? Um, so let's roll back a little bit to the second question of how you got interested in the technical field. You talked about your journey, but you never talked about what was so fascinating that got you started on that journey. Because you started off doing DJ work, but like what really was interesting, and I know there's a specific kind of a few stories from when you were first starting off that you could give an example of like why you were fascinated or how you kind of got lost in it that I'd be interested in hearing about.
Sure, yeah. So, yeah, like I mentioned, I was a DJ. I thought audio and sound was a lot of fun. I got to work in an audio studio, sorry, a recording studio for a while, for about a year. And while I was there, I was just always asking technical question after technical question. Like, how does this work? How does this driver work? I even had to learn a little bit of binary and how that applied to audio and how the wavelengths worked, and had to do a lot of technical connections to get the equipment working properly. And so that was kind of like my introduction to just using more technology, getting drivers to work properly, how to install the pieces of it and understand maybe why something wasn't working properly. So that was kind of like my splash. And then after I became a DJ, it was a similar story, but then I was having to work with a lot of audio software. And when I started working for the Haskell IT department and started learning the more traditional IT material, I realized that, hey, this is more, this isn't too different. The mentality and the mindset is still current. So, it was a really cool thing to be able to see and experience.
Yeah. So does your degree that you got at Haskell have anything to do with what you're doing currently right now, Phil?
Nope. Well, I shouldn't say no. It does. It does actually quite a bit, but my degree is not a
Ah,
CIS degree. It's so it does have a lot to do with it, but I didn't get a computer degree, computer information science degree. I got my bachelor's in business. So I got my business
mhm.
degree, and it really has helped me a lot in the interpersonal side of things, managing time and understanding how what I do impacts the business. And, you know, it gives me a different perspective. So I don't feel as, so like, yeah, I didn't necessarily go to school for mainframe, if that's what people might be wondering. But
I
I
didn't
feel
either.
like what
So,
I learned does
birds of a
apply.
feather. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a fun story that you told me about you were in class and you were doing hexadecimal. Could you tell that story? I just think it's amusing to kind of hear about that.
So yeah, I had been working in the IT department there at the school for about 3 years, and it was my senior year, and it was one of my last classes I was having to take for business, and I knew for sure that I wanted to do an IT type role, and I had really um, become fascinated with hexadecimal math, binary math, and so I started practicing it. Um, and one day I was in one of my business lectures, and I I was curious, like that there was like a math equation on the board, and I was like, I wonder what that might look like in binary or what it might look like in hexadecimal. And so I started just kind of like trying to figure it out and make it and like translate it from decimal to binary to hexadecimal and vice versa to try all the combinations. And little did I realize I had been doing this for a while, and someone taps me on the shoulder and they're like, "Hey Phil, can I get your notes for class after you're done?" And I was like, "Oh, well," and I held up my paper and it was just all this binary and hexadecimal equations, and they were like, "Never mind." Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I would have had my eyes been like, "What are you doing?" Because that's before I
Yeah.
knew what like hexadecimal was. But yeah, it just goes to show that you can kind of start anywhere. I mean, heck, you started in potatoes and now you're at mainframe. So you, as long as you have a passion for it, which it shows that you did, you're already interested in a class. You know, you can end up in mainframe. It doesn't need to be like a specific pathway to getting to working with mainframes.
Right.
Um, so, let's kind of proceed a little bit further. You were IBM STEM Camp is kind of how you got introduced to the mainframe. So I believe IBM reached out to your school, and they were interested in coming over there, but they had to get stuff set up, and that's kind of where you came in, right?
Right. Yep. Yep. I set it up. I got all their technology working. I got their test environments running and got them all the internet speeds that they needed. And so I was talking with them, making sure that it was all set up, and they were impressed that, I was pretty technical and I enjoyed talking with them and interacting with them. And it didn't take long till they told me about the mainframe apprenticeship with them, and started working with them there shortly after I graduated.
Nice. So then, correct me if we've already kind of covered this since I'm kind of jumping everywhere around, but what really convinced you that the mainframe was for you? Because that might be a little bit later on in your journey. You might have just been interested, and then a few years into the mainframe, you're like, oh, this is definitely where I want to be for my career. What do you have like a moment that comes to mind, or kind of what led you to being like, this is where I want to be?
Yeah, I think it was when I was learning about traditional, like I was going through some cloud classes in addition to my mainframe classes at IBM. I was just taking some because I was curious about cloud. I knew that it was a big thing and everybody was talking about it. So I wanted to learn more about it. And as I was starting to learn more about how servers integrate and then how they operate in the functions of the building and how much it costs to build a huge server farm and how much it costs to maintenance and um, cool those servers, I realized I was like, wait, mainframes do that a little bit better. I was like, the mainframe technology is really, really good at doing these things and about, being able to create LPARs and be able to utilize its hardware better, keep it cooler more efficiently, and how you don't need as many of them. It's just so powerful at batch. So I guess the more I learned about how the technology functions in addition to other technologies and was able to kind of like compare them at a one-to-one scale, that's when I really was like a big light bulb that popped up and was like, oh, I see it now. It's amazing. So
The
yeah.
clouds parted and then the
Yeah, the
beam of light came
clouds
down.
parted.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Look at that. That's funny. So, how it kind of felt like you were almost kind of swept along a path that felt pretty not straightforward, but just kind of one thing happened after another in order to get to where you're at right now. It seems to kind of have been like a natural progression, but what did you do? Like how was that experience kind of applying to your first mainframe opportunity, and what knowledge set was important to them?
um, I've always tried to remain very enthusiastic and
Right.
engaged and trying to get into whatever opportunities that I can to just, I don't know, get involved. I like being involved with stuff because I think it's fun and I like trying to help people and learn more. I'll chase down anybody that can help teach me more. But then if I see other people trying to learn and I feel like I can help them, I immediately try and give back and do that as well because I like to help people learn and just do what I can, get involved in, and then staying passionate and positive has really helped me along the way to find these opportunities to and just I don't know being being a part of things is fun. So yeah, and I guess the positivity and optimism and enthusiasm is definitely key as well. And just being willing to learn from from everyone on any side, no matter where they're at, no matter what part of the organization they're with or what step they're at their journey. There's so much to learn from everybody.
So I think you hit on something that's interesting that I've noticed within mainframe world, and that's enthusiasm. And that's something that you actually taught to me very early on in my mainframe career, and how showing enthusiasm for the mainframe itself is something that a lot of people don't consider, but is a huge aspect into that first career because they want to see that you're excited about the mainframe. So what part do you think enthusiasm, and I kind of, spoiler alert, I kind of said what you were probably going to say, but how do you think enthusiasm plays a part in that first role and your continued, career with the mainframe?
Sure. The mainframe, I feel like once you really understand what it is, what it does, and its impact on the world, I do not think it's hard to become enthusiastic about the mainframe. It's an easy thing to get excited about because it's so good at what it does. And in fact, there was one time I was at a conference and I was talking to a computer engineer and he also did consulting and very much on traditional server environments. And we got to talking and he was like, I don't know a lot about mainframe. So I started breaking it down for him. And he would pause me every now and then. He's like, wait, are you telling me that it can it can run how many processes? And I tell him, he's like, so you're telling me there's individual processors that do individual tasks? I'm like, yes, that's exactly right. That's why it's able to do so many at one time. And one of those processors will do transactions. The other ones will do databases or security. And I was like, it's very, very efficient. And that as the conversation progressed, like his like the look on his face went from like unsure to like, wow, this is amazing. And at the end he stopped and was like, why have I never heard of these? He's like, and why aren't more people, why isn't this more common knowledge? He's like, do I want to work in mainframe? He was just like totally blown away. And it was a really cool opportunity to see somebody who was extremely technical on the other side, kind of on his own as I answered his questions, come to the realization that yes, the mainframe is amazing and it's a really easy thing to be enthusiastic about, like I said.
Yeah, the mainframe is the best platform out there. That might be a bit biased coming from me, but there's certainly lots of facts and statistics that can back that up.
Yeah.
That's just yeah. So then we're getting kind of a bigger picture of kind of your whole experiences, but how do you build your mainframe skills? Like, how did you in the past? How are you currently, and what do you want to do in the future? If you can kind of go into that a little bit more in detail.
Sure. Building mainframe skills takes work. It's not something that is necessarily easy. I'll admit that right now. Mainframe, when I first started learning it, I felt like I was having to relearn computers completely because I had known what a partition was. I knew what processors did. I knew what memory was, and I knew how the basics of computers worked. But then suddenly I'm learning something completely different, a whole new architecture, going from ASCII to EBCDIC and, going to the learning how these multi-processors worked. It was a grind to figure out how all of this interact and how everything connected. But a key part of it was just always being curious, never being afraid to ask for help, and then continually trying to, just pursuing that curiosity, asking those questions. And then if you can get your hands on a test system definitely playing around in a test system, and even being willing to read the manual sometimes. I know that that's like most people's least favorite thing to do is to have to read the manual, but it's amazing being able that I feel like looking through a manual and learning how to find what you need from a manual is a skill. And so knowing how to do that to find the information that you need at the time that you need it is definitely an important part. So it takes work. It's by no means easy, but it's very doable. And the more you do it, I wouldn't say the easier it becomes, but the more achievable it becomes, I would say. Like the more the better you get at it, like all things. And then before you know it, you're looking back and you're like, wow, I've learned a lot. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And I definitely don't know everything. I'm always asking questions, um, being a sponge.
So I'll also use this as an opportunity to shamelessly plug in the IBM Z Explorer. I know you're very kind of late. You're pretty cemented in your career, but you were the one who actually introduced me to IBM Z Explorer. So could you talk a little bit about how that can help build up skills and what you can use that as a tool for learning, or how you can use that as a tool for learning?
Absolutely. Z Explorer is a great tool and a great opportunity. If there's anybody listening that hasn't checked out Z Explorer, please do so. It is a free resource. You get to interact with the technology. It has really grown and developed into an amazing learning platform, learning opportunity. Like they've really um, refined it so that it's easy to follow. It's fun, even because before it became Z Explorer, I had done it used to be called Master the Mainframe, and that's when I went through it, and to see the evolution of what it is now, being embracing Zoe, it's really awesome, and I applaud the people who have worked hard on that for their hard work and in evolving it and helping it grow into what it is now.
That's funny. You said that, and it was like back in my day, we had to do this one thing, and it
I
wasn't
know
that
it's
many years ago. I mean,
starting. Yeah, it's only five years ago. But
yeah,
yeah.
that's good. So before we move on to kind of this next section, I want to kind of give a second to see if we can get any questions or input from the audience and the attendees right now. I am shooting for one question from the audience. I will not be naming names, but I recognize a few people on here, and I'd love to hear from you guys. Just throw a question to Phil, maybe you know him, maybe you don't, but he's got so much insight and so much knowledge, it'd be a shame not to tap into him. So I'll give it like a couple seconds and see if we can get any questions. If not, we'll move on. But again, it'd be great to have one question on on our first little panel here together with Phil and I. So no
Yeah,
pressure. Oh, there we go.
yeah, we could have a question. So Sean said that where do you hope to be in the next 5 years? It's an annoying interview question.
We did it. We got one question out of the audience. I'm happy.
Yeah.
We're good.
In the next 5 years, I really hope to continue to be enjoying the journey. I don't know, maybe management. I'm really just enjoying where things are now and trying my best to get involved and work hard and just see what unfolds, follow the right opportunity when the right time comes. I don't think I'll be leaving Broadcom because I really like being at Broadcom. And yeah, we'll see. I do think management would be cool too.
So I think that kind of brings up kind of back into like a point earlier is the kind of idea that you're not necessarily siloed to just technical in the mainframe. There's a lot of different directions and a lot of different areas where you can support mainframe in Broadcom and IBM and all these other companies. Do you need to have that, technical knowledge to do that, or vice versa? Do you need to have business knowledge to do something technical?
Um, I mean, it can help, but I don't feel like people need to feel like they're stuck. I can't speak for all organizations, but I feel like the ones that I've been with, at least, when I was with IBM and when being here at Blue Cross, I not Blue Cross, I mean Broadcom, when I feel like I've been really fortunate to have a lot of opportunity to pursue my interests, my passions, and to really find those skills that I was good at and to be able to build skills and just really get a lot of opportunity. So I don't feel like anyone in the mainframe field should feel, or any field should feel siloed. But I feel like mainframe, since there's so much going on right now, there's so much modernization taking place. There's a lot of opportunity to really kind of try a little bit of everything and see where their skill sets seem to align the most and explore the opportunities and find their passions.
Good. Well, that was great. Thank you for the input. And thank you, Sean, for asking an annoying question, but a question nonetheless. I appreciate it. It wasn't actually that annoying. I hope Phil didn't think it was annoying either. So,
Oh no,
um,
no.
so let's kind of hop back onto this kind of next section, growing to serve, and what brought you into the mainframe community. And I think community here is a little bit more like the everybody coming together, like the Open Mainframe Project and all sorts of other events like Share and stuff like that. I think that's a good representation of the community. And just because you're in the mainframe world doesn't necessarily mean that you need to partake in that community, but you actively choose to on a daily basis to contribute to these communities. Can you tell me why and how you started to get involved with the communities? And actually, could we start with what communities you're involved with today?
Um, so yeah, I am part of the Open Mainframe project and Open Mainframe Education. I'm also part of the Z Enthusiast Discord. I'm on there. Um, I'm I sometimes help with it with MTE. I will be speaking at Share in DC in February, and really just kind of whatever people let me be a part of it. I think it's fun, and so I kind of got into it by just meeting some of the right people, and also like when I was at Share, um, I went to a session that Stephen Purvo was talking at, and or speak. He was speaking on a panel, and I went up to him afterwards, and I was like, "That was really awesome!" And we really just got talking, and that I started getting more involved with some of the things going on with the Discord that he manages there, and just other speakers. I just went up and started talking to people because I feel like that I'm like whatever they said just resonated with me, and so I've chased people down, and then I've had other people come and chase me down too, and so it's really fun, just getting involved and just being active.
So we kind of got a little bit of insight on how you're doing it today. Something that's always fun to ask is, how do you want to contribute to the community in the future? What are your goals with, the mainframe community as a whole?
Sure. Continuing to be involved, seeing how else I can help, how else I can be a mentor, and just looking for those opportunities to add value. Um, bring see what kind of ways we can help with the education. I've worked with Nancy on helping with education just for Broadcom, and I just think it's fun. So continue to help people learn about mainframe, um, build confidence in in what they're doing, and help people along their journey. Do whatever I can, however I can. So
All right. Good stuff. We're kind of getting down to the last few questions. So again, if anybody wants to ask any more questions, feel free to. But to those who are considering transitioning to mainframe, whether it be from a more technical position or maybe something a little bit more business or something like potatoes, who knows? What would you tell them?
Um, if they're looking or considering mainframe, um, there's a lot of opportunity right now. So if you're already a working IT professional and you're like, I wonder if mainframe's a possibility. Yeah, there's a lot of free education out there right now, and there's a lot of companies that are really needing mainframers and people that are willing to work hard, learn, and just be enthusiastic. So yeah, and you can do it. I feel like I can say it to everybody, like you can do it.
All right, so last question on this list. We'll see if anything else pops up, but do's and don'ts for people new to the mainframe. It's a pretty broad statement, but I think there can be some good details of kind of, where your head's at. And maybe we can go one step further and let's say that you're doing this from a more technical perspective, do's and don'ts as well.
I guess on the technical side, don't limit yourself, but at the same time, I don't know. I'm trying to think of don'ts. I'm sure there's lots of them out there, but like I guess generalistically, yeah, don't. I I almost said don't get carried away, but I mean if you're on a test system. but I feel like I've got more do's than I say don'ts because I say do be curious, do get involved, and oh, I do have a don't. Don't don't silo yourself and don't
Mhm.
like it's easy to get stuck in your own lane, and I say don't do that. I say go talk to people, learn about what they do, learn about how they are involved with the technologies that you work with and getting to know people. So do network and get to know people, and don't just silo yourself away from everybody. And and I don't know, sometimes it's easy for people to get critical and negative, so I say don't do that. Do be positive. So yeah.
Right. So I got one more question for you before I hand it back to Devante. We have a pretty good mix of people that join and watch this. So I kind of thought it'd be cool to see if you could, get in their mindset of like, maybe it's a new student, maybe it's someone new to mainframe, but if you could challenge them to one way to grow themselves, maybe professionally, maybe, just for themselves or maybe in mainframe just one way to like kind of walk away and think, can I do this? Or I'm going to challenge myself to do this. And you can think about this because this is a hard question. What would you challenge them to do? Like, how would you want them to better themselves?
Yeah, I would say on the professional side, my challenge would be to go meet somebody new every single day and mean it.
Yeah.
Go introduce yourself to somebody, even if it's just passing them in the hallway. If you don't know who they are, you don't know their name, you don't know what they do. If it doesn't look like they're in a super big hurry, stop them and talk to them. Or if they're in the elevator. Now, if you're working remote, and every now when I was working remote and I tried getting to know people, if I saw somebody on a webinar and or on a training or something like that, and I thought they did a good job, I would ping them and be like, hey, I thought you did a really good job, my name's Phil. And I would try and get to know them and start chatting with them. Or if somebody had pinged me, I would try to get to know them a little bit more, and I would just reach out to people. And so that's my challenge, go beyond your comfort zone and get to know people. Another challenge would be to take on something that seems uncomfortable or difficult. And if just introducing yourself to people is that challenge, then do that. But sometimes it's like, I don't know, like it might be a technical thing that it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm smart enough or technical enough to do this. Well, sometimes I've found that just rising to that challenge or that opportunity, I've had to learn more. Like we're doing a hackathon right now, and I've been learning so much just getting to be involved with our team and to learn more about how they work and how and just getting to have that team, like in doing like a speed
Yeah.
POC sort of thing. So that's definitely my challenge there. On the technical side, challenge yourself to learn something new. Challenge yourself to be curious. So if you've been doing so, like say you're working in the traditional ISPF realm and you see a menu item that you're like, I don't know what that does. You're like, what is SDSF? And you've never had to work with it or whatever. be curious about it, or the command line. How many commands do I know? Be curious and challenge yourself to explore a little bit more, or if you can't necessarily interact with the software and the hardware, challenge yourself to ask a question to somebody and learn. So just always pushing yourself, I guess, is the general challenge there.
So I have two things I'll follow up on, but first, someone asked the second question. Very excited. That brings up my new record to 2 questions on these calls. So thank you. They're asking, can a data scientist work with the mainframe? The mainframe looks like a coding and lots of programming stuff, Phil. And I'm
Absolutely. That's an
sorry.
easy
I
yes.
don't know how to pronounce your name. I don't want to butcher it, but I'm going to take a shot at it unless somebody else on the call knows how to pronounce it.
Well,
Esogene? I hope I'm right. I'm so sorry. Connect with me afterwards and tell me how to pronounce your name. So yeah, back to the question, Phil.
easy yes. Data science can absolutely work with the mainframe. In fact, that we need data scientists in the mainframe field. Just like a regular IT environment, the mainframe needs data scientists. So yes, there is a like I don't code on the mainframe. I was a systems programmer, so sometimes I would do some scripts every now and then. But now that I'm a technical consultant, I look into environments, I help test them out, I build them, but I'm not doing a lot of coding. That's the developers. So, yeah. Thank you for that question, Cynthia.
Cynthia, thank you. Appreciate that, Cynthia. Again, I'm so sorry. Okay, so I have another question. Someone new to the mainframe asked me this question on LinkedIn. I was wondering how Phil would respond to this. The fact that most of the organizations who rely on the mainframe are among big Fortune companies is a good factor for someone new to mainframe, or could it be a bit scary to them to find a job in the mainframe business? So I'm gonna try to, sorry, there's a lot of movement around in the chat. A lot of things just got answered all at once, but it looks like you're kind of asking a question on, since a lot of Fortune 500 companies are the ones with the mainframe, is that intimidating? Is that kind of what you're trying to get at, Shiva? You could just type in an answer or another thing in the open question. I just want to make sure I'm getting your question right. Perfect, I did it. Okay. So yeah, is it, is it intimidating trying to apply for Fortune 500 companies because those are the main users of the mainframe? Or do you think there's a lot of excitement and desire for new people with mainframe knowledge to come work for those Fortune 500s, Phil?
Let's see. So I don't think it's scary by any means. If anything, I think it's exciting, because you get to see a big impact on what you do. So if it might sound scary, to work for a big Fortune 500 company or something like that, then I mean, like I said before, you can do it. It's not as scary as it might seem, but at the same time, um, there's so much opportunity in mainframe. There's so many ways to get involved, and if anybody is ever curious about what kind of opportunities there are and what those might look like, I'm happy to answer those. And again, it's not just technical roles. I mean, there's business roles, there's data science roles, there's sales, marketing. There's all sorts of levels.
So there's one thing I kind of want to dive in deeper that question kind of made me think about is, traditionally when you're applying for a cloud or distributed role at a Fortune 500 company, those are extremely competitive, very intense interview process, and they can be fairly intense roles. The mainframe still can be a bit of a very hands-on intense role, but the interview process for a mainframe role at a Fortune 500 company is going to look very different than the interview process for a distributed side of the Fortune 500 company, right, Phil?
Possibly, yeah. It just really depends on the role and the organization and what they're looking for. Just like in any interview, try and learn as much as you can before you go in there, and be as prepared as you possibly can. And yeah, thankfully with Mainframe, there's tons of free education. Looks like we have another question there from Pi.
Yep. So
So,
working with a ticket system in Mainframe is a great opportunity to expand your experience and grab valuable knowledge for to develop skills further for your organization. Do you reflect often about lived experiences, or do you keep them in mind for future references for your career?
okay, yeah, I agree with that. I do reflect on those, and how I do think it's a good experience, even if you don't think that's necessarily your speed. Like I'm grateful for the opportunity to work in ticket environments, where I had to really monitor systems and be the guy responsible if they broke, or standing them up upgrades, and whatever was needed for that system, because it helped me understand what that role was, and helped me to, I guess, face challenges that I didn't think I possibly that I could at the time. And so it was a unique experience, and it helped me also realize that that's not what I wanted to keep doing permanently. So hopefully that answers the question there, and hopefully I answered your question there, Shiva, as well.
All right. Well, we're up to several questions. This is very exciting, guys. You guys are doing phenomenal from the attendees. I love to see these questions. So I'm going to kind of circle back to kind of the challenge that you set, Phil, real quick, unless someone else wants to ask another question. I'll circle back to that question first. Questions from the attendees are my main priority. So real quick, first off, you issued a challenge to talk to someone new every day. We have a panelist on the Open Education Mainframe group right now, Phil, Devante, Nanji, and myself. And those are a great starting point. So if you want an easy couple of first days on that challenge, send us a LinkedIn request or email or however. All of us are very open and would love to talk to you guys. Phil's especially a fantastic mentor. I highly recommend you reach out to him, just connect with him on LinkedIn and just talk with him. It's a great way to get that challenge on the interpersonal side kicked off. And then
Yeah,
on the second side, for some of you who may have mainframe experience, you might know this, but to kind of learn something new every day, what is SPF? What is ISPF, Phil? Really briefly, so then we can all learn something new today, maybe.
I mean, in one word, it's a menu.
It's a what?
It's a menu in one
Okay.
word. It's how you can navigate within ZOS.
Well, there you have it. So today we're already off to a good start with that challenge. So hopefully you guys can keep that ball rolling. On that note, if there's any other questions or comments, please post them. Phil, if you have any closing comments for the audience you'd like to leave off on, now's a great time to leave it. Other than that, we'll hand it back to Devante if you have nothing else, Phil.
Just thanks for the opportunity. It was great being able to be here and to speak with everybody. And like Taylor said, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and always happy to talk and help however I can. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Phil, for agreeing to be our speaker today. You definitely given all of us, I'm sure, a lot of insight and a lot of these take away. And a lot of points I do agree with you on is that, you have to be curious. You can't be stuck in a silo. You have to be willing and open to learn. And then also the mainframe space is a space for everyone, regardless if you're technical, non-technical, or no matter what background you come from, right? Mainframe has definitely become a home for me and a lot of people, and I just thank you for sharing your journey on that, because I think that that's something that I really do find special about mainframes, is that we all have a journey to share, right? So thank you for sharing that.
You're
And
welcome. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. And I don't see any other questions in the chat, so I'm gonna move on to our next session. And one of the things that Taylor and Phil talked about was, how do you plan to serve the mainframe community, right? And we at the Open Mainframe Education Project have a great way for you to do that, which I'm going to talk about. So you can be a part of the Mainframe Open Education Project. And what MOE is that it's an open source community where you can contribute content, create content, and then also share it with other mainframers, especially those that are new to mainframes, and that way they can get started on their own journeys. And we are looking for different types of skill sets, for technical, non-technical, roles, roadmaps, whatever it may be, right? If you have anything that you want to share, that you have learned throughout your journey, feel free to share it with us and be a part of the MOE project. We're always looking for new people, and you can always start contribute today, right? Phil challenged us to talk to new people, and then also to try and learn something new, right? You can achieve that challenge by doing this. So it's a really great way to get your foot out there in the mainframe community and just see what people are talking about, and find similar interests with other people, right? So
Right.
let's see. So right now we do have a the MOE Git book, and right now we have lots of different chapters about what is mainframe today, the foundational technology, the different roles in mainframes, deeper dive into those roles, and then different career path options. And some future topics that we're working on is application modernization, how to go from student to mainframe professional, digital badges that you can earn, and lots of other different topics. And we're always looking for new topics to add to the Git book. So if you definitely would like to contribute or have something that you've already created to contribute, just reach out to anyone here on the team, and we would love to add that into our Git book. And let's see. And as I said, the Git book, you can sign up and log in now. We have lots of different reviewers. So once you create your content, post it, a member of the team will review it, and we will add it to our overall Git book, and just kind of give you guys some insight here into the different ways that you can create to contribute in terms of the content. It can be visual, it can be diagrams, it can be a red book or one pager, whatever you see fit, a video, TikTok, whatever ways that you want to share, it can be posted. And we're always looking for new fun ideas to make learning mainframes more exciting, right? And just trying to create a one-stop shop for all mainframers, and that way they can have every resource there, especially for students in mainframes, right? Just having one stop where they can learn everything that they need to know about mainframes without getting too deep in the weeds. They can learn it there on the Git book. So it really has become a great resource for me, and I kind of wish that I knew about it when I first started learning mainframes. But the good news is that you can also contribute to it, and help us out. So let's see. Oh yeah. Also, when you do contribute to the Git book, you do earn a badge, a digital certification that you can post on LinkedIn, and share, and share within your network, that you can, encourage more people to contribute content. That's what we want, right? That's the goal of the MLE project. So, once again, if anyone has any questions about it, feel free to reach out to anyone here on the panel, and we would love to help you get started. So. With that, that is all that we have today. Taylor, Phil, Nachi, Mary Blessing, if you guys have anything else to add, then yeah, please do. If you have any other questions in the chat that we didn't answer, we can get to those.
Real quick, I am in the process of posting everybody's LinkedIn for Cindy. She asked a question. So you should have all 4 people's LinkedIn, and we're happy to connect. So sorry to throw everybody else out there. I'm gonna say that you are all happy to connect. That I know you are, but I'm volunteering you. So
Yeah, no problem.
Thank
I'm
you.
always to connect with new people. Awesome.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you all at our next session in the new year. Thanks, everyone.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.